I'm not able to rename myself, but my name is Keegan Anna Breckenridge, and I'm the Operations Director at the Soto Zen Buddhist Association. I'm here today to talk about our 2024 year-long series that was generously funded by the Lenz Foundation. It was titled Celebrating Women's Voices in Buddhism, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. And this series was planned and organized by our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access Committee at the Soto Zen Buddhist Association. And we received funding from the Lenz Foundation. So this was a monthly series. We had over 20 speakers, and it really was a diverse set of presentations, workshops, in person, online talks, also with in-person attendance. We hosted many of these from a Zen center across the country. We had 2 events that were in person at a conference for our members. And we had over 1,000 registrations for this series year long. And part of what worked for us was really to collaborate when we invited a guest to speak to us or created a panel by asking them, what would you like to talk about? We would have planning meetings and say, we would like to hear from you. Tell us what you would like to say. And is there someone else you'd like to invite with you, which led us to quite a few really interesting panels. What's the format that works best for you? So that was one thing in working with women that I really enjoyed, and that we've kept that model as we've gone forward. So we opened that year-long series with an in-person and online workshop at the Buddhist Institute of Studies, the Institute of Buddhist Studies, my apologies, in Berkeley. Dr. Paula Arai led that day with a wonderful Dharma talk, a bunch of group activities, and a gratitude ceremony inspired by her work on finding gratitude in Zen practice. We went on to have a bunch of different panels and talks offered online that covered a wide range of topics: navigating relationships in Buddhist communities, Zenshin, the first woman to be ordained as a Buddhist nun. That talk was given by Jan Chosen Bays. We talked about the body as a doorway to practice with a panel with Steph Blanc, Grace Damon, Karen Zakotis, and Susan Moon. We had a talk called Throughout the Body, Hands and Eyes, Compassion and Bodhisattva Activism by Joan Halifax from Upaya Zen Center. We had a talk called A Trace of Mahavajati, The Elements of Dharma Transmission Woman to Woman by Zenju Earthland Manuel. And also another one about transmission and transformation in women in Himalayan traditions by the Venerable Karma Lakshmi Somo, who's the co-founder of the Sakyadhita International Association of Buddhist Women. And then we finished the year with the Dharma talk and a full moon bodhisattva ceremony by Galen Godwin at Houston Zen Center. So that's just a few of the programs that we offered that year. As you can hear, there was a lot of people that we invited to speak and a lot of different topics that came up. And some of the takeaways were just the challenges of live events being also a blessing, that we were able to get all of these different folks from around the world. We had one that was about 10 minutes late because the Venerable Lakshay Somo's Wi-Fi went out right before we were about to log in. So she was able to give the talk by satellite phone just a little bit later. And what a blessing it was to be able to hear from her at the top of this mountain, and also a little nail biting for our event host. And really to hear all these different women and the diversity of their experience in Buddhism and what folks were interested in. It really informed our programming even for this year. The generosity of the Lenz Foundation allowed us to hire a programs coordinator to bring all these guests, and that's still working for us a year later. So we were able to create a template and format for these type of presentations and get a lot of different audience members. I think we represented 14 different countries in this series, and most of those folks are still engaged with us today. I think that was my 5 minutes, and I know that was a lot of information really fast.
Hello, everyone. Greetings. I am sitting here in Boulder, Colorado, land of Arapaho, Ute, and Cheyenne peoples. And I was one of the recipients for the 2024 grant. Um, I I love to, in the spirit of connecting with all of you, I want to say what I have come to love in these days of what I call polycrisis, fascism, if you want to use that name, and climate crisis. I love to hold hands and look into people's eyes and say, what's hurting? And I wish I could do that with each of you. I hope you're doing well where you are. Before I came to this place of knowing like my life's purpose is to hold people's grief and rage, is I was working as a full-time climate scientist for a world-renowned environmental organization called Environmental Defense Fund. And I left that job 2.5 years ago, and Lenz Foundation's grant was actually like most of it was supporting me in doing the work that I love to do. And I'm so grateful for that, right? I wanted to write a book that told the story of why I left mainstream climate movement, what was lacking there, right? We were working so hard and we were still not able to make impact. And instead we have, I hope most of you would agree with me, we've slid back, right? Like we don't have capacity to think about climate because we are worrying about basic safety of people we love. So I will not speak more about my book. The one thing I'll highlight is that the book is not yet out. I don't even have a finalized publisher, but the work I could do with Lenz Grant, it has been featured in multiple podcasts across Europe, US. I got keynote invitations to speak in New York for New York Climate Week. We had 1,000 people there. That was a big thing, right? And Lenz Foundation helped me put my ideas forward. I estimate anywhere between 8 to 10,000 people have been reached because of this. What I want to use the rest of my time is in talking about the work I've been able to do to lift up women of color as Buddhist leaders. So I'll share my slide quickly. This work started when 5 years ago, I started leading retreats at one of the nonprofits. I'm a co-founder of Dharma Retreat Center. Beautiful place. Please come and visit if you can. This is the indoor. I started leading 5 years ago people of color retreats. How real they have been in my journey. Um, we have 25% people of color as participants of Buddhist retreats or Buddhist centers, but just a fraction ever become teachers. And my job, the funding I got from Lenz Foundation, was people that I meet through these retreats, amazing leaders in their lives, but don't have money, resources to get to Buddhist retreats. I take them and I mentor them to be mindfulness teachers. They will never finish the Zen lineage curriculum because so many of them might not have resources and time. But I have been mentoring them, about 15 of them, and they are begin to lead local small groups. I wish I could tell you story of each of them, but thank you, Lenz, for making this possible. So yeah, that's all I have. What I'll say is that the the conditions that I have another mixed race sangha where we do Zen practice, but the conditions that a lot of my BIPOC women leaders face are so different, and I have been so fortunate to be a partner, almost an auntie. That relationship doesn't have the formality of
Mm.
some of the traditional lineage work, but
Yeah.
it fills my heart. And I invite all of you to create BIPOC spaces in your sanghas if you can. Um, I will die thinking about these people. I don't have biological children, but that something is that we look at just one piece of the big problem. We look at climate crisis as a problem just of our carbon footprint, right? And then we were trying so hard to reduce how much carbon emissions each of us or each country or each region has. And that approach doesn't land for people when part of the problem is we have so much trauma, so much sense of shame that we keep buying new cars, new shoes, new makeup, right? So we have to deal with trauma and we have to look at other problems, racial problems, caste system problems. We have to address the poly crisis. And there is a whole book, Norman, so I don't think I can give you a whole spiel in 30 seconds. But I would love to chat about it. That's what book is about, and I'll send you my podcasts.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here. I was just saying earlier in the pre-game of the meeting that living at Tassajara for the last 2 years doesn't afford me the opportunity to meet people in person or even get on Zoom very often, given how busy, which seems a little ironic, living in a Zen monastery is. So glad that I was able to participate here. I'm actually in San Francisco at in the city center, which is the urban temple of San Francisco Zen Center. Um, so first, I want to thank Liz and Norman and everyone at the Lenz Foundation for their generous support. Many moons ago, when I was working at the Brooklyn Zen Center, I participated in a couple of workshops, one at the Garrison and one I think somewhere in the village, maybe at Shambhala. And yeah, so I was really excited to see the request for proposals for this cycle in 2024 for the Lenz Foundation grants, and that it was focusing on women leaders in Buddhism. And I'm not sure, I know a few of you have been to Tassajara, like for sure Tenku. Hi, Tenku. And I'm sure other people as well have been to Tassajara, but it's a very remote place and not easy to get there. And also not only logistical barriers, but also just financial ones, because it's usually fairly expensive given the remoteness and the housing situations, as well as it being a revenue generator for to keep San Francisco Zen Center going. So having this $10,000 grant from the Lenz Foundation afforded us the opportunity to have what we called the True Dharma Eye of Women was the name of our workshop. And we were able to provide about 6 partial scholarships for people to participate. And I would say everybody in the workshop, for maybe 2 people, had never been to Tassajara before, including the co-lead teacher, Jan Willis, who I'm sure many of you know as a rock star pioneering Tibetan Buddhist practitioner as well as a scholar. So that was her first time coming in 2024, and it's been on her bucket list, her Buddhist bucket list for a while. So it was really thrilling to be able to offer her and Pam Weiss, another, I think, pioneer in Vipassana and Zen Buddhist teaching, the opportunity to come teach together, and they're actually good friends. So we had Pam Weiss and Jan Willis leading us in this workshop, which spanned a week at Tassajara, and the participants were able to participate in our modified monastic schedule, which is morning meditation and service, and then evening meditation and service. So that was sweet for them because it's not often that people can come to a Zen monastery. And then we had 2 classes a day that Pam and Jan led, focusing on a select few female ancestors in Tibetan Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, and also Zen Buddhism. So that was like a taste across many Buddhist denominations. So that was really helpful. And um, yeah, excuse me. So Jan offered a Green Tara empowerment. So she gave a whole class on Green Tara and led us in an empowerment meditation ceremony. And we handed out these beautiful little Green Tara malas as
All right.
part of the empowerment ceremony, and also to just, remind women about our connection that is and eternal, and Green Tara always supporting us as we go about our day. And yeah, what I also wanted to say was that the we also had a wonderful experience in that Jan offered a Saturday evening public presentation to probably about 150 people. So this was all the residents at Tassajara, the participants, the 25 or so people who participated, and all the guests that were there. So this was a big public presentation where she talked all about how radical Buddha was, that he allowed women to become renunciate nuns, given the milieu where he was born and teaching. So she spoke for almost 2 hours about how radical Buddha was, even though I know there's a lot of controversy around, why did Ananda have to ask 3 times, for women to be accepted? But it was a really wonderful program, and I'm so glad that more than just the participants were able to attend. And then flash forward, because we had a little money left over, we were able to invite Jan back for this summer in 2025. The Lenz was gracious enough to let us use some of the largesse to offer an honorarium for Jan. And she taught to about 35, 40 people 3 classes about Buddhism, just covering the basics of Buddhism for the residents as well as the guests at Tassajara. And then she gave another big presentation on a Saturday night with about 200 people, all about social justice and Buddhism, engaged Buddhism, and talked about her life and civil disobedience as part of the Children's March during Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights movement. So that was really edifying and inspiring, given the times that we're in right now. And also, again, having this phenomenal woman of color offer her inspiration and insights and her grit to those of us sitting in the hall, because she survived a lot as a young Black child in the Deep South. I just wanted to say that um, every summer at Tassajara, there are at least 20 programs that are led by women. They're not necessarily focused on women leaders in Buddhism, but they are in fact led by women leaders, women teachers who are offering the Dharma at Tassajara during our summer program where it's open to the public. So I just want to I just want to mention that happens most every year. So not only is it important, as we know, to talk about the teachings of women Buddhists, but also the representation, as Kriti was talking about, of women as teachers, right? Of people of color as teachers in these roles. So I just wanted to mention that does happen quite often at Tassajara during the summer.
Today I'm wearing my Tara Mandala hat. It's so wonderful to be here with all of you. And Tara Mandala is a retreat center, an international Buddhist organization founded by Lama Tsultrim Alioni. The physical retreat center is in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, but like a lot of you, increasingly our offerings are online, and we offer both online and in-person retreats. And we were really excited about the 2024 theme of women leaders in Buddhism, because that is part of Tara Mandala's mission, is both in terms of representation and in terms of women-led lineages within Tibetan Buddhism and the sacred feminine teachings. Those are all highlighted within Terra Mandala. The majority of our authorized teachers, staff, and executive board are women, and supporting women in practice, especially long-term over the course of a lifetime of practice and the different phases that that might go through, is a high priority. So we received a grant for 4 programs at Terra Mandala, all of which are led by women. And I have a slideshow because I want to sort of feature these women because they're such dear teachers to me. So I'll bring that up in a moment. But the focus of the grant was really for all of these programs to increase outreach, and especially through scholarships, and to increase our capacity to support people after the retreats or courses, which ran from anywhere from a week-long in-person retreat to a 12-week weekly program, in ongoing practice sessions online, so people could continue to meet and be supported in their practice. So I'll run through these programs. The first is Sky Mind, developed and written by one of our senior teachers, Dorje Lopen Charlotte Rotterdam. And this focuses on Maciej Labdron's teachings, 11th century Tibetan yogini, central to the teachings we offer at Terra Mandala. In this offering, this is really an offering meant to be accessible to those new to Buddhism, new to Maciej's teachings, really about bringing practice into everyday life. And in 2024, we offered it both in person and online. We had 100 participants, about 60 to the land, not an easy place to get to. Approximately 30% were new and 20% received scholarships. The majority of those were for people to be able to come to the land, and those were 100% scholarships, room and board. We've continued to offer free bi-monthly practice sessions through our online platform, and that's been very successful. The majority of those participants are still practicing in those online platforms supported by Lopan Charlotte. Our second one was a pilot program led by Lopan Carla Jackson Brewer called Transforming Racism, and it's a program she developed integrating Vajrayana Buddhist practices and cultural literacy to surface and transform racial bias. We offered that online to 40 participants. Approximately 20% were new and 40% received scholarships. And then in addition to that, additional funding to support our BIPOC and Thousand Arms Sangha, that's the name of our LGBTQ Sangha. These meet monthly as well, and have really been growing under Lopan Carla's leadership. So that was part of this grant as well. The third program was the Mandala Method, and this, in the context of the grant, was used to support a Dakini Mandala retreat, which focuses on the fierce feminine expression within Vajrayana, and involves a lot of personal work as well, which is one of Lama Tsultrim's focuses. This was led by Lopan Ellen Booth Church, and it was offered to 50 participants. 50% were new. This is a common entrance point for Vajrayana practice, and 30% receive scholarships. And the Dakini Mandala practice taught in that retreat, or that course, which is a 12-week course, is one of the most common practices offered through our global Sangha. So we've been able to support them even more with their Zoom accounts and everything that it requires to be able to offer online practices that a local Sangha, sometimes those expenses can be prohibitive. And then finally, the fourth program was Lama Tsultrim's mother lineage called Magyu. This is a long-term pathway. It's really meant to be a 7 to 10-year path, series of retreats, but it has a very flexible commitment in terms of what order you do those in and the level of practice in order to accommodate a lot of life's fluctuations. 80% of the participants are women. Spiritual mentoring is a key part of that program. We had 125 participants in 2024, and 35% of them receive scholarships. And we meet quarterly to support everyone's practice and answer questions. So I think the key growth and learning for Terra Mandala, like for many of you, was how to sort of bridge the in-person and online experience and how to really support people in practice when we haven't necessarily ever met in person. Increasingly, our retreats have people from all over. So we're really working on that. And all 4 of these programs, the follow-on practice groups online, have been really rich. And that's, I think, been one of the primary supports, and the feedback that we're getting is how important that is coming out of a course or retreat. And we're really grateful to the Lenz Foundation for helping make that possible.